Hi everyone. So we are the team that is going to be presenting the argument for the statement that says that China is a threat to Southeast Asia. So we will be covering four major threats from China to Southeast Asian nations. First, the economic advantage, the political advantage, the military advantage, and finally, the technological advantage. Talking about the economic advantage, most of Southeast Asia's economic growth is being fueled by China. However, the expanding economic presence of that country is bringing up fundamental weaknesses around Southeast Asia. It comes with China's dominance over a region that will be under increasing pressure to follow its lead. China is putting money into Southeast Asia, much of it in the shape of large-scale infrastructure projects related to the Belt and Road Initiative. Tourism and trade also have increased. Exports to China from Indonesia and Malaysia grew more than 40% in the first half of 2017. From Thailand and Singapore, it was almost 30%, and more than 20% for the Philippines. As welcome as all this economic activity is to the region, it could also present political problems, as countries confront China over issues such as its claims in the South China Sea, as both Vietnam and the Philippines have found. And it raises the risk that China could apply economic pressure to get its way. We could look at the South Korea example to understand the current situation, where the deployment of a U.S. anti-missile defense system that China opposed resulted in a sharp decline in Chinese tourists in the country, affecting all the economy. And also Southeast Asian companies doing business in China, like Lotte Group and Hyundai, were hit in the diplomatic fallout. The South Korea example is a highlight of how the geopolitical vulnerability to China can increase as the bilateral economic relationships expand between these. Other problems that all the investors in infrastructure bring to Southeast Asia are first, simply the negative externalities of a lot of these large-scale infrastructure projects. Chinese state-owned companies that are involved with the Belt and Road Initiative are sometimes quite corrupt, and they are used to force things through in the face of local opposition or without taking local concerns on board. This causes negative environmental effects, for example. Or you have displacement of people to build hydropower dams or highways. All of this direct negative impacts. The second concern is debt, the fear that small nations will become over-indebted to China, and that will compromise the sovereignty over the long run. There is a lot of concern among Southeast Asian countries that China's fast-spreading geo-economic influence will see Beijing resorting to economic retribution to settle its political differences with neighboring countries.
Moving on, another threat of China to Southeast Asia and the whole region is its political advantage in comparison to other Asian nations. For example, China is an authoritarian regime with a very strong leader, this one being Premier Xi Jinping. And the Communist Party is the only legal and therefore ruling party in the country. Therefore, China is considered internationally as a dictatorship. However, although under Western standards, this may not be the best possible way of governance, under the one-party system, China can actually formulate a long-term plan for national development and ensure a good and stabilized environment, especially politically and economically, as well as militarily. And therefore its policies are not being affected by the alternation of parties with different ideological positions. And this efficiency is actually very effective also in terms of foreign policy, as well as having a very strong and fast reaction to emerging challenges and opportunities. For example, we have seen this in the last few months with the reaction of the country to the coronavirus pandemic, and how under one government they've been able to really control their population, and China is now one of the fastest growing economies in the world. So, additionally, one last thing is that China can use its political arm with its economic strength and military escalation in the future as one arm, therefore very effective. And I think that that will actually be of great advantage in the future.
Another threat to Southeast Asia from China is their military advantage. The last decade had seen another shift in China's foreign and security policy. The country is becoming more and more assertive in the international arena, especially with regard to its neighbors. One symptom of this shift is a surge in defense spending. While in 1989 they amounted to 6.7 US dollar billion, and in 2003 to 22.4 billion, in 2012 it was already 106.4 billion. A more important role in international security policy as a member of the UN Security Council, it is an indispensable partner in solving global issues, but it is also becoming a military challenge, especially for neighboring countries. Southeast and East Asia is an area not only for rapid economic development, but also a potential place of crisis tensions, which might turn into a military confrontation with global consequences. The South China Sea is an area of great strategic importance both locally and worldwide. China bases its efforts to control 90% of the South China Sea on historic rights. It leads to many conflicts between neighboring countries that also claim rights to this area. It led, for example, to acute dispute with Vietnam. The case concerned the start of oil exploration near the borders of the two countries' economic zones in 2014. Ultimately, after several weeks of political conflict, when both sides sent their naval forces to the disputed region and attacks on Chinese citizens in Vietnam, Beijing withdrew from the search. Another dispute arose when the Chinese dispatched their ships to stop a Malaysian vessel's search, also in an area deemed to be disputed in the South China Sea. This situation had potentially greater consequences than in the case of the dispute with Vietnam, as the Americans increased their military presence in the area at that time. In order to strengthen its position in the region, China is expanding artificial islands and enlarging the existing one to create the possibility of using them for aviation, navy, and missiles units. These actions apply to all the archipelagos they claim, such as the Spratly and Sparcel Islands. Airports, helipads, radars, anti-aircraft, and missiles defense stands were built on them. This creates an area that is protected against access by the US forces. At the same time, these installations are used to put pressure on countries with which China has territorial disputes to agree to their domination in the South China Sea. This puts countries such as Brunei, Vietnam, Malaysia, the Philippines, Indonesia, and Taiwan in a difficult situation, as so far they have been able to benefit from the security guarantees offered by the US, and on the other from rapidly developing economic contracts with China. They now have to choose between the Americans and the Chinese. The rivalry in the South China Sea is also considered to be an element of strengthening the sense of Chinese unity and the importance of the Chinese Communist Party. Gaining control of it would confirm the importance of Beijing as a dominant power in Southeast Asia and a possible introduction of further activities, including regaining control of Taiwan, as well as the implementation of Greater Area Bay, an economic project to connect the coastal areas of Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, and Macau provinces in the influx of the Pearl River. The determined attitude of the parties to the dispute over the South China Sea shows that neither side has any intention of giving away. China also does not want to agree to limiting the use of the reaches of the South China Sea. Other countries in the region, such as Vietnam, Indonesia, and Malaysia, are not going to give up for similar reasons.
Finally, regarding the technological risks, first, we have Chinese monopoly on the global technological standards, in which China's fast development and control of amount of data could allow its firms to potentially act as monopolies in the Southeast Asian region, leading the global technology market to their benefit, undermining innovation and competition, limiting medium to long-term growth potential. Following that, the commercialization of Chinese technological lead is also a threat, as Chinese created softwares and information systems can pose a security risk and raise inefficiencies by the banning of information and market access to foreign countries in the region, using this technology lead in their benefit by creating a network and equipment that is only compatible with other equipment made by them. From espionage to data safety, this poses an increasing risk, especially in China's excessive influence, thus affecting also business opportunities that could have a long-term negative effects. Finally, Chinese threat in military and political advantages, as Chinese national intelligence law in 2017 creates a legal responsibilities for Chinese firms, private firms, to offer access and cooperation for Beijing's intelligence gathering activities. This poses a great risk for countries in the Southeast region because they that if they use these Chinese companies, they're putting them in a vulnerable position where industrial espionage is allowed by their country. Thank you for listening.